Thank you, Mohammed. And as we talk about these things, right, it's going to feel like a lot, okay? Because if I was saying yesterday was high level and we're going to go into a lot more detail, then that tells you there's a lot we're going to be talking about. And it is going to feel like a lot. But one thing that helps me in my own learning journey is that as I'm giving information, I try to divide it, right? Okay, what part of this information am I responsible for? And what part am I consuming? So what I mean by that is that I'm going to be telling you about some document types today that you will encounter on the job. Some of those documents, you're not going to create them, but I'd like for you to be aware of them so that when you're in a meeting and they're talking about it, you're not feeling lost. I feel the need to say that because when you start feeling overwhelmed, just remember that, okay, I need to be aware of it. I'm not responsible for it. For example, we're going to talk about project plan, right? Typically, your project manager is the one who will create a project plan, but you may contribute to it. You will definitely consume some of the information you need that will set you up for doing really well on the job. You will get from the project plan. Okay. So now, if we have a chat about project plan and you land that BA gig that you want, and they're talking about a project plan, you know what they're talking about. Okay, again, I repeat, I'm saying that just so you don't feel unnecessarily overwhelmed thinking, oh, so as a BA, I need to, do all of these things. No, it's not everything we're going to be talking about that you would need to do. The ones that you need to do, that you're responsible for, I will highlight them. And the ones that you need to be aware of, maybe because you will contribute to it, even though you're not responsible for it, or there's information in there that you need, right? I will let you know as well. The other thing that I want to mention is when I started my journey as a BA, I didn't have a community around me. So I had this other person who was like a friend who was starting out in his BA journey as well. And, we'll talk about stuff, just trying to brainstorm to figure out what we were faced with, but there wasn't so much help. We could help one another because we didn't know much more. Like I didn't know much more than he knew, and he didn't know much more than I knew, than I knew at the time. And so when I'll get back from work, I could spend the next 3 to 4 hours trying to figure things out, Googling it. I did not have a support structure. That doesn't have to be you. What is the point I'm trying to make here? Okay, this is outside of the slide, right? But just something I consider important is find your own community. As much as possible, don't walk this journey alone. If you know another BA who's just starting out their journey, you may want to bounce ideas off one another. But in that community that you're going to be building, you don't want it to be just BAs who are just starting out as well. You may need one or two BAs who have experience you can leverage, people you can ask questions, right? They're not necessarily easy to find because everybody's busy, as you know, right? But try your best to get one. If you can't find a mentor, you get stuck in your at work, they've asked you a question, there should be somebody you can text. You won't always know the answers. And I don't think there's an expectation that you'd always know. But when you don't know, what do? You need to be able to, there's some you figure out on your own, and there are others that you save yourself a lot of headache just asking. Remember that um it is what you deliver on the job that is appreciated, not the effort that you put into it. So the fact that it took you 1 month to create that requirement document isn't going to get you more stars than the person who created it in 2 days, even though the person who created it in 2 days got help, if you know what I mean. It is result that is rewarded, not effort. So know when to ask and know who to ask, right? Have those people in your community. I'm hoping like that may not be for everybody on the call. It may just be for a few people. But for me, it was tedious when I was starting out. And I know it doesn't have to be that way. You just need to have the right people in your circle. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the information for today. Yesterday, we got to the point where I wanted to start talking about Project Artifact. Can everybody see my screen? I should confirm that before I continue. Can you see the PowerPoint that I'm sharing?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
You can? Okay, awesome. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about project artifacts. So when we say project artifacts, what do we mean? They're basically, a lot of it is around documentation, right? What are the type of documents you would encounter on the job as a BA? It could be you creating it. It could be somebody else creating it, like I mentioned earlier, right? As the BA, you're not the one doing everything, okay? You're not the one creating every single document that the project will be using. So let's start at the top here. We have what we call the business requirement document, also known as the BRD. This is the document that contains the high level requirements of your organization. It's so high level that it can't be built. Like you can't just take that statement and go implement it. It's not configurable. Okay? It's not about any particular tool. It's basically just the need of the business. So an example is what we have on the screen. We want to increase our customer base by 25% before 2025. Okay? If we look at a non-technical example would be, oh, in our family, we need to get a second car before the end of 2024 because our family will grow larger. Something like that. It's not talking about how you're going to do it, what exactly you're going to do. It's just really talking about the high level need. So in real life on the job, right, when you see a business requirement document, it may have like 20 business requirements in there, but all 20 of them will be very high level. All right. Now, lower than the business requirement document, we have what we call the functional requirement document. Not every organization will create one. Most of the places where I've worked, they've asked for a functional requirement document, but it's nothing complicated. It's really a document that outlines a lower level detail of what we need to do to achieve the business requirement. So in the business requirement, we said that we needed to grow our customer base by 2025, before 2025. What do we need to grow that customer base? What are the things that we need to do to be able to grow the customer base? Okay. So it may be that, okay, today everything we do is manual, right? Let's think of an insurance company, right? Where everything they do today is manual. When you go do an eye test, you have to mail the physical receipt to them for you to get reimbursed if you had to pay upfront, right? And now they're like, oh, we need to grow our customer base by 25%. Well, there is a group in society that would appreciate mailing paper, right? But maybe the younger generation may not like that. They want everything to be done electronically, right? Okay. So now this company says for us to be able to attract, our potential clients that are within this age range, we need to go digital, basically. So we're going to implement a tool. When we implement that tool, what do these users need to be able to do in the tool? Okay, well, they need to be able to submit a claim. They need to be able to check the status of their claim. They need to be able to do, there can be up to 100 of these functional requirements. But the functional requirements always have to trace back to the business requirements. Okay, so you start at the business requirements, okay, and then you get to the functional requirements. Sometimes when they hire you, they may already have the business requirement. There's no template or there is no defined point where they hire a BA. Sometimes you are hired as a BA as a replacement, right? Because the other BA left and the other BA might have started working on the functional requirement. Sometimes they hire you at the point where they're envisioning the solution. So nothing has been created. Okay, so that's the benefit of knowing all of these things because you don't know at what point they're going to hire you. So now you know there is a document called the business requirement document. There oftentimes will be another document called the functional requirement document. Again, the functional requirement document is at the task level. Okay, there's what we call the technical requirement document. BAs oftentimes do not concern themselves with this document because it's very technical in nature. We'll talk about like the programming language. It may talk about some of the infrastructure that will support the application or the solution. Okay, there is another document called the project plan. Oftentimes, the project manager is the one who would create and own this document. Now, BAs work closely with project managers, right? Usually when the project manager needs help with information or anything like that, they'd reach out to the BA. On the project that I'm on at work right now, the project manager needed to send a report to the VP. We were all copied on that email, and I could see the back and forth, and the VP was tackling the project manager. I felt tackled on her behalf, but it was a battle to fight. So she reached out to, there's like 3 BAs on the project. I was the first BA on the project, so I led the requirement gathering, did the current state and all that. And she's like, oh, I'm running blanks right now. What do I need to say? And we gave her ideas. And then like 10 minutes later, I saw an email go out where she emailed the VP, and she basically almost copied verbatim some of what I put in there. Now, I'm not saying that to give myself credit before you. I'm saying that so that you know that when you get on the job, that is some of what your project manager may rely on you for. So even when it comes to the project plan. Now, what is the project plan itself? It's a document that outlines step by step what needs to happen in the lifetime of that project. We're going to begin the project. Then we're going to hold workshops. Oh, I should do this I apologize, I should have done presentation mode. Okay, yeah, so we're going to kick off the project, which is we're starting the project. We're going to do our workshops, and then we're going to gather requirements, and then we're going to do, we're going to bring in vendors to come and show us, right? Whatever has been decided by the project team, usually the project manager, the project sponsor, the stakeholders, right? We'll go in here. This is the document everybody wants to look at to say, okay, this is what needs to happen, and this is when it needs to happen. If a project is going to last 1 year, we just don't take it one day at a time. There actually needs to be a plan. We need to know what's going to happen in February, in March, in April, in May. There are even some project plans where they'll put the name of the person responsible. So on the line where you have requirement specification, you would have your name as the BA or maybe your title. That is the essence of a project plan. And like I mentioned earlier, it's oftentimes created by the project manager and maintained by the project manager. They may ask for your support as a BA, but usually you do not own this document. Okay? So project plans are important for many reasons, It tells everybody clearly what needs to happen. It's an open document that people should be able to view, not edit, but they should be able to view to know, okay, where are we at? Somebody may come to you, the project sponsor may come to you and say, oh, Abiola, so where exactly are we in this project? If I don't know, I'll say, oh, give me a bit of time, I'll get back to you. I can go look at the project plan. Okay? It enables you to visualize the entire project. You can see the milestones. It enables agreement as well. Because let's say somebody was looking at the project plan and they're like, okay, that looks wrong. That would open up conversations, right? The conversations that need to be had will be had, and the project plan will be updated. The project plan gives you information. It shows who does what, when it needs to be done, okay? And it enables you to track the progress of the project, basically. In fact, the project plan will also help you see if we're behind, right? Because if the project plan says by December, we should be going live, but the whole project is still riddled with bugs in November, chances are we're not going live in December, right? Okay. We talked about proof of concept yesterday. And again, proof of concept is a very scaled down version of that implementation. Before we give you vendor $1 million to implement this project, we're going to give you $20,000. Show us the magic you can perform. If you cannot perform that magic with $20,000, you can't with 1 million. Would rather risk 20,000 than risk 1 million. So that is the proof of concept. We have what we call the process flow diagram, okay? And this is basically, it's actually an actual diagram, right? That shows the steps involved in an activity, in a task, right? So think about it this way. You're talking to the marketing manager and you say, oh, tell me about your lead generation process, right? They're going to tell you in words what it is. you will capture it in words. That's the current state, right? And by that, I mean you capture it line by line. Line number one, this happens. Number two, that happens, right? That is called your narrative. But usually when you have a narrative, you'd have an associated process flow. And you'd use the various tools out there. One of them is called Visio. It's very popular. You can Google it after class, right? It's a mapping tool. Just think of Visio like you're putting pen to paper and then you're drawing out what they've told you. Let's say when they detail the step, there were 10 steps, right? Steps 1 to 10. And then you take a piece of paper and a pen, you draw box 1 and you put number 1 in that. Whatever they told you they do number 1, you put it in there. I'm actually going to show you Visio in class, but I just want you to imagine what I'm talking about, right? That is what a process flow diagram. It is a diagram that shows the flow of the process, just like the word says, right? What is the process for going to work? I take my car key, I get in the car, I start the car, I drive out of my garage, I drive to work. When I get to work, I park my car, I come out of the car, and I go into the office. I start my day. Now, all those things I said, if I numbered it, it's about 10, right? I could then map that out. Business likes to see diagrams because diagrams are easy on the eyes. Like if I give you a Word document that has like 20 lines in there and I put a diagram side by side with it, you most likely will gravitate towards the diagram, right? And there may be people amongst the stakeholders who prefer narrative, but usually as a BA, right, you should have the narrative, which is the story form in Microsoft Word, and you should have the diagram as well, okay? Then we'll move on to requirement traceability matrix, right? And this is basically a document that traces your requirement from the beginning of the project to the end, right? Some projects are so big that you may have up to like 200 functional requirements. You need some form of tracking mechanism to know, okay, this is where we're at. So maybe in sprint 1, we're building 1 to 10. And then in sprint 2, right? Again, sprint, just think of sprint like a block of time. January 1 to January 15 is our sprint 1. In this period, we're going to build the first 10 functional requirements, right? And then January 16 to January 30 is our second time box where we're going to build requirements 11 to 20, okay? Now, when we're in sprint 2, building requirements 11 to 20, it doesn't mean that we've completed 1 to 10. In fact, there may be a bug in number 9 that we still need to fix, right? The fact that we moved on to sprint 2 doesn't mean sprint 1 is perfect. We need a way to track all of these things. Okay, requirement 9, there's bugs, is currently sitting with the testers, right? Or it's sitting with the developers who are working to fix the bug. Okay, and then we have what we call use case and user stories. I'm not going to dwell on that again because we have an entire lesson to talk about it. And I think I may be talking about it a little shortly as well. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of documents, right? There is a lot, but I mentioned a lot of the ones that we're going to be referring to in later lessons and that are commonly used on the job as well. Well, these are not all documents. Some of them are concept, right? Okay. Wireframe. What is a wireframe? If you look at the image we have on the screen, right? It's like a fake phone that I have on the screen. So imagine that we wanted to create, we were trying to envision what the user interface of a mobile application would look like. We don't want to finish developing it before we show it to the people who have asked for it, right? So sometimes we create a graphical guide of it and get feedback. It's easier to use a tool, right? There are many tools out there. Use one of those tools to create an image like this and then get feedback. Like if you look at the first image and you create this and take it to the business, and they'll be like, we don't like where the logo is, right? It's easier for you to go back to your desk, move the logo down, right? Compared to imagine that we first built it and then we go show it to the business and they say, oh, I don't like where the logo is. That I don't like where the logo is can take more than a week to fix, right? Because we fixed it and we test it. And maybe when we're fixing it, we broke another part of the code. Okay. And that's why There are many companies who really like wireframes. They want to catch things early, right? They don't want to develop it and then find out, okay, we need to change it, So using a wireframe helps get feedback at low cost, basically. And in case you're wondering, oh, as a BA, am I the one who's going to create a wireframe? Yes, it could be you. Okay? If you don't know how to use any of the tools, when you get on the job, and if it's a company that wants you to do wireframes anyway, they will have their own tool that they like to use. You could probably learn it on YouTube in 1 or 2 days, or whatever tool it is they like to use. Okay? One of the tools that I've used in the past, I think it's called, is it Balsamic? I think, right? For creating mock-ups, right? Mock-ups or wireframe. Okay? So those are the terminologies and document types that I wanted to go over today. We're still going to be seeing a lot more documentation type and terminologies as we go along, but that is all we need to know for now. So lesson 2, we're going to go into business case. Okay? This is a document that is often created by the project manager and the BA with the support of the business. Okay? What is a business case, right? So imagine that your company wants to implement a solution that's going to cost them 1 million. Any company that knows what it's doing, if it were to invest 1 million, wants to make maybe 3 million, right? For example, we want to grow our customer base by 25%. We're not growing our customer base just for the basis of growing it, right? It's probably because we want to make more money. We want a bigger market share, and we want to increase our revenue. Okay, so we know that if we increase our customer base by 25%, that should lead to maybe 20% increase in revenue year on year, and 20% increase is about 3 million. So why won't we invest 1 million today to make 3 million annually for the next 5 years? So I hope you understand what I mean. And so this is why many projects would say we need a business case created. We understand there's value to be derived, but we need to see the numbers. Somebody needs to show us the numbers. How investing 1 million today is going to lead to is going to lead to an increase in revenue of 3 million annually for the next 5 years. And so that's the main reason why this document is created. It shows the justification of Vivian. I can see your hand raised, but we'll take questions at the end today. We have just about 45 minutes together today, so I want to make the best of it for the benefit of everyone on the call. So I look forward to taking your question, but if you wouldn't mind, just hold on a bit. Thank you. Okay. So the business case basically shows the justification for the proposed investment. Why should we do this? It's almost like you're investing in the stock market. If you put 1,000 into the stock market, it's not because you want your 1,000 to reduce to 500, right? You are hoping that 1,000 will turn into 10,000 by the end of next year. Except for business case, it's not about hope. It's about reality. Okay? Do the rewards to be derived outweigh the cost? If the reward and the cost is the same, then why are we doing the activity, right? Your company may choose not to do the implementation. A business case will look at the benefits, the cost, and the risk of alternative options, right? So what is the benefits, right? The benefit is 3 million annually over the next 5 years. The cost is 1 million one-time cost this year. Risk of alternative options. Alternative option is we don't do anything. We continue cruising. After all, we're profitable as a business today. We don't need to change anything. But if we don't change anything and our competitor changes something, maybe even the customers we have today will go to our competition. Okay? This document is typically prepared by the project manager and the BA in collaboration with other stakeholders. That collaboration is very important. A PM and a BA should not just sit down and bring up the numbers. I mean, you do not know the business the way the business knows it. You don't know how marketing makes money for the company the way the marketing manager knows it. So all of that information you're going to put in the business case, you really should be getting from the people who know. The project manager and the BA in this context are facilitators. You're not generating information yourself. However, How well you can work with the stakeholders and get the information you need to get from them is what would determine how solid your business case will be. Now, once this document is prepared, it's submitted to management because management is the one who needs it to be able to make an informed decision to proceed or not. Management will then analyze the facts and figures in the document and make a decision whether they want to go forward or not. Do we want to invest the 1 million or not? Is it clear that if we invest this 1 million, we're actually going to make the $3 million, right? Is it clear in that documentation? Basically. So a business case would cover the following. What is the current problem? Sometimes it's not a problem, it's an opportunity that we need to take advantage of, right? Gain a bigger market share. That's not a problem. That's a potential, that's an opportunity that we want to realize, basically. It will talk about the benefits of the proposed solution. It will talk about what is required in terms of people, money, time, and other factors to make that implementation a reality. We will talk about the change management that needs to happen. I'm sure you've heard people do not like change. It is management that knows that they are going to be making 3 million. You see, the average worker just wants their salary and they want to go home. They don't want change, right? I've worked on a project where I've heard people say we are going to make the project fail because they just weren't mentally ready for the change. Okay? But that's a topic on its own. The business case will talk about the return on investment as well. So what is the return to be derived? And that's why I talked about, okay, we'll make 3 million annually for the next 5 years. And then we'll talk about the time frame. You know, compare these two statements. Oh, management, if we invest 1 million today, we're going to make $5 million in the next, we're going to make $10 million in the next 10 years. Compare it to management, if we invest $1 million today, we're going to make 3 million annually over the next 3 years post-implementation. The second statement is more enticing, right? Because you're telling me in 3 years, I'm going to make 9 million, compared to you telling me in 10 years, I'm going to make 10 million. Think about inflation. 10 million, what 10 million means today and what it means in 10 years are two different things. So there's delayed gratification. There's many things that could happen between now and 10 years, right? And so that's why they need to know the time frame. Of course, the time frame is the time frame. You and the project manager are not going to doctor it to make it look good. Your job when you're putting together the business case is not, you're not trying to paint a flowery picture so they buy into the solution. No, you're stating facts because they will come back to this business case later to say, okay, did we actually achieve what we said we'll achieve? Okay. So what are the steps for creating the business case? So like I mentioned, identify the opportunity, the problem, or the opportunity, and the desired outcome. I've talked about that already. So strategic environment, strategic fits, what is the detailed description of the need, what is the scope, right? Maybe the scope this time around is that we're going to do this implementation for 2 teams, right? That is phase 1. And then in phase 2, we're going to do the other 3 teams. So the money we're asking for right now is to implement it for phase 1, which is the marketing and sales department. Okay? Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what are the viable options out there. So in your case, right, maybe there'd be 3 or 2 CRMs, right? Salesforce being one of them. Of course, there's a particular one that is more recommended, but you want to paint a full picture, right? To say that we didn't just narrowly go choose one application, right? We did our research. These are like the 2 contenders, and this is number 1 because, and then you list the reason. Okay? And then you also want to talk about the full cost of the implementation. So it's not just about the cost of buying the licenses, right? They will pay you as a BA, they will pay the project manager. You know, even the business that you're going to be talking to and doing the interviews, even though they are employees of the business and they get paid salaried, if within that year, they're going to be dedicating half of their work hours to the project and half of their work hours to their regular job, that half they're dedicating to the project may be paid for by the project, not by their actual department. And that's why Costing is not as easy as, oh, 1 BA, 1 PM, 100K, 100K, 200K. No. Like the detailed costing, the marketing manager will be spending 40% of their time. That is the cost. Okay. So I talked about evaluating options earlier, right? We want to talk about how each option will deliver or support the objective of the business. Okay. I told you about RFUI yesterday. We've asked vendors to tell us how their application can support the requirements that we have. And they've all come to do a demo. And now we've created a document where we've basically included how each of them, just based on their presentation, right? Based on what they were able to show, how well they will be able to meet the requirements. And some of these we looked at was, okay, 3 options, A, B, C. C says, I can meet each and every requirement that you have, but we're going to do a lot of integration. That's already a red flag. Nobody wants to be integrating up and down if they don't have to. If B comes and says, oh, out of the box, we can deliver 85% of what you're asking for, and you only need to do additional, like there's going to be some integration that will take about 15% of the time. That sounds better than C. So those are some of the conversations that would happen and that we want to document. And then in that document, we're going to select, I wouldn't use the word select, but it's more like we're going to recommend the preferred option. So of the 10 that indicate that we've seen in the market, competing in the market, these are the 3 top ones. They are the 3 top ones because that's what our competition is using and they're doing well in the market. They have good support, they have good training, that they can provide to us after the implementation and all of that, right? But we propose A because you list all the reasons why you propose A. Again, do not let this overwhelm you. You're not just going to sit in a room by yourself and figure all of this out, right? In doing the research, you're going to be having conversations with the marketing manager, with the project manager. The 2 of you will talk about it. This is the information that I have. What is the information that you have? You compare it. Everything you're putting in this document is information you'll be getting from other people. Your ability to get that information is what will set you apart. Okay, I said yesterday, you're an analyst, you're not a solutionist. There is no expectation that you sit down on your own and you start making things up. In fact, the day they find out you're making things up, maybe the day they'll say your services are no longer needed. Nobody wants you to make anything up, but they need you to talk to people to get the information that is important that is required to make the decisions that they need to make. Okay, and then we develop a strategy, so an implementation plan, and basically how to go about implementing this project, the resources that we need, what is the timeline, what is in scope, what is out of scope, is it going to be phased, phase 1, we do phase 1, we stabilize it, and then we move on to phase 2. So if we're only concerned about phase 1 here, that's what we're going to focus on. Okay, I'm going to be walking you through a real business case document, just so that, all of this, theoretical information that I'm giving to you, you can actually just see what it might look like. I can't guarantee that what I show you is what you're going to see on your job, but it will at least give you an idea of what to expect and what the document is about. I think that we should stop here today and take questions. Okay, if you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll go through the comments that we have here. If he said, how do we have access to the slides? Mohammed, I'll leave that to you to handle. Okay. Oh, okay. Someone said it's on the Slack channel. Okay. All right. I'll leave all of this. It's not about the class. Olusegun, go ahead, please.
Good evening, Viola. Good evening, everyone. So my question is just about the BRD. So the BRD, the functional requirement document and the technical requirement document, can they just be 3 in 1, or they are compulsorily separate documents?
Yeah, so there is no rule. There's no rule. I've worked in a place where they were completely separate documents. And then where I am right now, the BRD and the functional requirement, they're together. Like one document, but separate parts of the document, if you know what I mean. But there is no rule. Again, like I mentioned earlier, your company would have a template. What is in the template? Is it combined or is it separated? Whatever they're following is what you want to follow. I think that's a really good question, but there is no rule to how it's done. Usually, though, the technical requirement document will be separate because it's so technical that only the technical people want to read it. Okay. Odun, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Odunayo.
Hello, Bella. Okay, so my question is about the return on investment, right? So in a real life scenario, that kind of information, like I'm sure that would require a lot of calculations or probably where they are right now and what, like just the feasibility study of what is going to yield and all of that. That kind of information, what part of the business would you usually talk to get that?
The people who are doing that activity currently. So let me give you an example. When I worked at an insurance company, right, I think I hinted at it yesterday, we were automating the claim submission, right? And so we're like, okay, so today somebody sends in a paper claim and then it goes through 3 different departments and eventually the person will get paid. It will take an average of 2 weeks for you to get paid if you were to submit a claim. Sometimes the claim will get missing. Sometimes people will be like, I'm frustrated with this insurance company and they go somewhere else, right? Now, when we were automating it and we're doing like yesterday I talked about us integrating like 4 applications. Anyway, that's a very important information. We basically had to sit down and say, okay, so today, because the process is so manual, we're able to process 500 claims a day. If we process 500 claims a day, how much revenue are we getting? Let's just say it's $100 for the purpose of this conversation. When we automate it and we do robotics process automation, optical character recognition, and all this complicated sounding stuff, right? We're going to be able to process 10,000 claims a day. Whatever we're making on 500, multiply that by 20. Because if you divide 10,000 by 500. So do you get the concept of what I mean? I talk about it simply, but in reality, what I just told you took weeks for us to do it. So yes, it can require calculation, but it is logical calculation. And where do you get the information from? There is no way I would have known how many claims they were processing a day. I had to go to the printing department who was receiving the claims. And then when I finished talking to the printing department, I went to the claims processing department. Because the fact that printing received it on Monday does not mean it gets to print, doesn't mean it gets to the claims department on Monday. Just depending on how busy they are and everything they need to scan, maybe half of it will make it up. So multiple departments, right? The key thing that you need to figure out is that this task or this process that we're creating a business case for, who owns it? Who participates in it? You come up with a list, right? And how are you even going to come up with a list? You would ask. You're now working with the company or working for the company. You'd ask, so when a claim is submitted, oh, where does the claim land? They'd be like printing department. So you go to the printing department and then tell printing department, so when you're done all the activities you need to perform with the claims, what do you do with it? Oh, we send it to the claims processing department. So when you're done with printing, you go to claims. And then you talk to claims, you ask them questions, and they be like, so when you're done with it, what do you do with it? Oh, we send it to finance. Who's your contact in finance? They give it to you. Then you go to finance. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. That
Yes.
like the fair about this, like my fear about this is, there are some businesses, like maybe using myself as an example, when I was in banking, we just do these things and we don't really know the cost implication.
Right.
In the case where even the business owners, and I know them were trying to like automate a lot of processes and all of that. And when it came to like giving information about, oh, maybe the cost implication, we could not really speak to that because at the end of the day, the cost does not even come to us. We're just working. We don't even know how it translates into costs, right? So that was like the concern when it comes to like the ROI. But I get what you mean.
Yeah. Okay. So usually for a business that knows what they're doing, they should know the cost. However, sometimes not everything can it's not every time you can determine the cost of a thing, even when the business knows what they're doing. what needs to happen in that situation is you need to mention that the cost is unknown. You will try everything you can to get the cost, but if it is a cost that cannot be derived, then you should, in fact, you must mention that the cost is unknown. So that again, because think about it, think about your audience, right? You're creating this document for executive management to make a decision. If there's a part of that document that is incomplete in quotes because we do not know, put it in there. It is unknown. So when they are making the decision, they know it is unknown and they can make their decision still based on that unknown. Shift the responsibility from yourself, you and the PM, right? Put everything that you're able to get access to into that document and then submit it. Like I said, there are times where the cost is unknown. Like even when we did the insurance project, there were some costs that we didn't know, but in that situation, we knew enough. In fact, let me give you an example of one of the costs you calculate. Sometimes the cost is the salary of the employee performing the task. So you may not know the cost of the task itself, but Odunayo is the one performing the task. 90% of her time on this job, she spends it performing the task. And we're paying Odunayo 200,000 a year. Well, what is 90% of Odunayo's salary? Do you understand what I mean, Odunayo?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Lucky.
Yeah, hi, good evening. All right, so before I jump into the questions, I just want to say amazing delivery. I must commend you. You just have a way of making things easily understandable and very digestible. And thank you so much for that. Yeah. So very quickly, I just wanted to ask, what's the difference between the TRD, FRS, and the SRS? That's the technical requirements documents, functional requirement specifications, and the systems requirement specifications.
Yeah. Okay. So functional requirement, like I mentioned earlier, just by the name, right? Function. What is the function we need to be able to perform in the system? I need to be able to submit a claim. I need to be able to check the status of my claim, right? Or let's even use the example of a restaurant. We all go to a restaurant, right? I need to be able to order food online. I need to be able to track the delivery of my food. These are functions that you as a user perform in the system. Those are functional requirements. So technical requirements, I gave an example earlier, would be, okay, this application, right? Let's say that we were integrating Salesforce with another application. So we already have this other application, and now we're going to implement Salesforce, right? And we need to build an integration. Okay, what type of integration? What will the integration entail? Such items would go into the technical requirement document, right? A BA may never even see the technical requirement document, and trust me, you start to lose nothing, even if you don't see that document. The business, definitely, they don't want to see it, but these things still need to be documented. We need to know that this application was developed in JavaScript, right? There's certain information that we need. It still needs to be captured somewhere, but it's not really relevant from a business standpoint. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, I'm following.
Yeah. So as a BA, in fact, I would say that of all the different types of requirement documents that there are, the ones that you focus on the most would be the business requirement and the functional. There's what we call the non-functional requirements as well, but usually it is tagged with the functional requirements. So the non-functional requirement is requirement that relates with the behavior of the system. So as a customer, I want to be able to order food online, right? That is a functional requirement. The non-functional requirement is that when I'm ordering the food, the page needs to load in 3 seconds or less. If your page as a business is taking 1 minute to load because I want to order like a burger, then I'm moving on to the next restaurant. So the non-functional requirement, right? Usually you would not create a separate document for it. These are requirements that would usually be put in the functional requirement document, all of which might go into the business requirement document depending on your company again, right? But the most important thing is know the types of requirement that you as a BA should focus on. Business requirement, functional requirement, non-functional requirement. Whether they all go in the same document, 3 different documents, I think is irrelevant. Again, my opinion, right? But anyway, I digress a bit. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you just didn't touch on the systems requirements, specifications. I've seen some JDs asking for that. And then for the non-functional requirements, would something like look and feel of the system also come under
The
non-functional?
look and feel, yes. So that's why I use the word behavior, right? The
Right.
look of the system, the feel of the system, these are not functions that you perform. So that's that. Now, the system requirement document, again, this is not usually, I mean, JDs are interesting. You see some JDs and you'd be like, did they mistakenly write BA on it? Did they mean like a developer or something, right? A BA usually should not be creating a system requirement document because these are like system requirements. Like if you look at your job title, it's business analyst, right? A lot of what you're doing, they're not the technical stuff, but I know you're not lying. The JDs that would ask for a system requirement document, and those are basically in fact, what I'm going to do for the next class is I'll show you a sample of both, or you could even Google it and just see, it will give you an idea of what these documents contain. But it's basically the system requirements are like the requirements from a system standpoint, right? Like what are some of the, so you know about infrastructure, right? Infrastructure will be like the hardware and all of that, right? It's in documents like that you have some of this information. And you begin to question, why does a BA need to have this, right? Just a bit of context here. I've heard that sometimes companies cannot change their job descriptions because there's a long approval process for them to change it. So even though now they want to hire a BA, this JD was created 10 years ago. Nobody wants to spend the next 3 months getting approval to change the JD. So they reuse it like that. Do you understand what I mean? So there'll be things on there that are not really relevant to you. You don't need to worry about.
Yeah.
Of course, you're not going to know until you actually get on the job. But as a BA, I really wouldn't worry about technical requirement document or system requirement document because even if I were to contribute to it, I will not own them. I should not own them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm thinking system requirements documents would be things like, okay, for instance, you want to install a software, you require Windows 11, you require X 64-bit, things like that. SRS
Yeah, it would contain those and a lot more. It actually gets like more, more. It can get technical pretty quick, but it's really things like that, right? Again, like I said, from a system standpoint, like you said, okay, there's some companies where they use Apple, right? They use Apple and they don't use Windows, so what operating systems are we using? Or maybe this application that we're implementing, one of the tools in my current job that they're going to be implementing for you to be able to use the mobile application, your phone needs to be not older than 2021. Something like that will go into maybe like the technical requirement document or the system requirement document.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I see. I think I can take only one more question in the time that we have because we need to close 10 minutes early. So Bola, go ahead, please.
Before Bola, can I take, when Bola is done, I would like to also make one more announcement, please.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Good evening, Abiola. I just want to I just need clarification as regards the cost and benefits under the business case. So where you mentioned that there are some costs that will be unknown. Instead of leaving it unknown, is it okay to make your research maybe on Google and just let them know that based on your research, this is what it is, or this is what the range looks like? And my second question is as regards the human power that will be required on a project, will it be okay to reach out to probably the finance department just to have an idea of what the pay is? Because I know those information are usually confidential and they don't divulge such to employees.
Right, yeah.
So in such instance, how do we go about getting those information? Thank you.
Okay. So I'll answer the first question and we'll hold the second one till tomorrow, just in the interest of time. So you said that, can you go online and Google it if, let's say, the cost is unknown? Well, what exactly are you going to Google? Because the cost you're trying to come up with is unique to the business, right? It's not a random cost you're trying to come up with. It is cost in the context of the organization. So usually it is not something you can Google. And if you Google it and your company is okay with it, just let them know you Googled it. I've never had to Google cost. Usually we know the cost And if it is a type of service that we're not able to determine, right, what the cost is, then we just say, because it is okay not to know the cost if the cost is truly unknown. Now, if you don't know the cost because you didn't do your homework well, that's not going to look good on you. But if genuinely you don't know the cost because it's just not documented anywhere, maybe it's just one really small added service that nobody has really costed, maybe even runs on its own, it's been pre-scheduled, right? It is usually okay to just say you don't know it. Full transparency, okay?
All right, thank you.
Before Babskenki, before you come, and was that Bola? I'm not sure. Please hold your second question. I'll take it tomorrow. I don't want you to forget, even though I know I might forget, but I'll be more than happy to take it tomorrow. There was somebody else who raised their hand and they lowered it when I said I couldn't take the question. Who was that? Can you just raise your hand, please? There was another hand up.
Yeah, I was the one.
Aminat, okay, so I just want to make a note of that because I would like to start with your question tomorrow. I really don't like leaving any question unanswered. Aminat, are you okay with it? Is it okay if I take your question tomorrow?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for your time. I know it was a short class today. Hopefully I'll have more time to take more questions tomorrow and it will only get more interesting from here. I'd like to leave you with one thing. It may look complicated, but it isn't. Remember what I told you yesterday, that we're going to go over a lot of information, right? And it's going to feel a bit overwhelming. But what would really matter is owning your part in all of this, right? In the 100% we're going to cover, what is the 30% that you need to own? When they wake you up, you can answer that question. And what is the other 70% that you just need to be able to facilitate your work, right? There are things you need to know to be able to carry a conversation on. There are things you need to know so when you're in the room, you don't look clueless, right? But you don't own it. You're not responsible for it. Don't bog yourself down with it. And as you go through each lesson, I'll tell you, this is what you need to own as a BA. People should come to you because you are the authority on it. I'd really encourage you to focus on those ones. I mean, focus on everything if you know what I mean, but know what you should own and spend more time with it. Okay, Babskenki.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you again, Biola, for another masterclass. You can start the